strange weekend it was last weekend. For some bizarre reason, I sold about 10 clutch forks over the weekend. I put them on eBay as well as on my site, because eBay gets a lot more publicity than I do, but I had to put the prices up on my site, on eBay, to cover for their costs. Well, that doesn't really matter. But I've ordered another set, and I've just made another 19, but I thought I ordered 20, and this one escaped. It was under a rag on my bench. So I thought it would be a fine time to update the video for fitting the bush, because, you know, I do a little kit with the bush and all the bits and pieces that you need to do these yourself. And as I mentioned before, even if you've got a fork that the ball's pushed through or it's all cracked, you can still fit the bush. All you've got to do is drill it out and put the bush in. Hey presto, that's how we did it in the first place. JP and I, we came across this idea of a bush, and we had about 8 or 9 goes to get it right. You know, some was too big, some were too small, and eventually we got it right. So I thought today I'll show you how I prep these up. Now I have a jig to do these because I do an awful lot, but you can easily do these at home, and they work very, very well. And of course, now with the kits, I also include our little special clip that goes on there to hold the ball in, out of steel instead of that plastic piece of crap. Yeah, so now I actually took off the spring clip, the little clip that goes in here. How I do that? Simple. Just a chisel, a very sharp chisel, thin, maybe a wood chisel even, and don't tell your dad, and one quick swipe and it's off. That will leave a bit of residue rivet in there, because that's the other side of the rivet. And then you need a little punch to punch out the rivet. Now we can get round to prepping this up, because there is a little technique that I use that makes life a lot interesting. I am not sure if these are hardened. I think they could be, like, but the steel's very hard to drill. It's not easy. So what I do is I buff off the end of here, not all the way through, just until it starts to turn coloured like blue. Then I know it's very thin. Then I know my drill from my hole saw will go through. I'll show you the hole saw I've got. As I mentioned before, we had quite a few problems in the beginning about the ideal dimensions for these bushes. We wanted the side walls to be thick and shockproof. We wanted the side walls to be thick, but not that thin, you know, so that they might break. So we made them nice and strong, but the problem was getting a hole saw to the right size, and this was our problem, because down here we've got the bush and it's actually 26.31 millimeters, and the hole saw here might be pretty worn now. I think the hole saw is about 24.75. Now there is a reason for that. There was method in my madness for that. We use, stop rolling about. We use, you see these sides of the pressing here? Once we've drilled this out, we can observe the hole if it needs bias into one side or the other side. We know that that way is good, that's not a problem. But sometimes when you drill this out, the hole saw can go off a little bit. Now this works in our favour, because now we can use a die grinder, which I'll show you later, just to grind this out and move it a little bit one side to the other so it's perfect. Alright, now that's the way we do it. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this in the tool, and we're going to buff off the point here until it's ready to drill. I'll just go back over the dimensions again, because I didn't have this zeroed in properly. But this bush is 26.14. For some reason this caliper here doesn't zero properly until it's warmed up. I don't know why. So the bush is 26.14, 26.15, but the only decent hole size I could get was 25mm or 1 inch ish. It says 1 inch, but it's stating here 25mm. So that gives you a little bit of wriggle room to get the centering of the bush right. Doing this, I've got it in the vise. I'll do it now. So you want your glasses on. You see there, it's just starting to go blue at this side, so that's a little bit biased towards this side. I'm going to buff it the other side and get it equal, then I'll come back. There, that's a lot better, because when you look at it the inside, you can see it's coloured. That means it's nice and thin, so now we can go over the drill press. Once in the drill press, I use this taper hole cutter. They're absolutely useless because they're too soft, and that's why I keep thinking that this might be a bit hardened. But I use that because it's a nice point at the bottom, and then what I do is I set up the cutter to be dead centre on the hole. See what I mean? I don't know if I could do it like that, get my hands up there. Yeah, see, that's going to be dead centre. So then we lock up the table, we keep that as it is, because once I'm set up I'm good to go. I can do 20 at a time. The pointy things pushed a hole straight through there, so that's not too bad, so I can line it up with my drill here. Perhaps you can see that there. Alright, so you can see how easy it is to drill through that piece. And then and I have it so that all the little cutout bits go in a tin under there. So that's done. We'll take this off and we'll go back to the bench. Right, so there's our fork with the hole in it. We'll get that out of the way because we don't need that. I'm going to get rid of a lot of those burrs, and we're going to observe the hole in here. Now you can see on this one it's cut just a little bit close to this side here, over there. So what we're going to do, and this is why I made it like this, so that you can actually move that hole just to one side with your carbide burr. And you're going to get them nice and central, so you're going to work off that and open it out. The carbide burrs I use are these things here. Titan. They are absolutely excellent. Cheap as chips. Now I put them in a die grinder, but you could put them in a drill. But I've got to get some equipment on. Those little flaky bits get in your pockets, so I put an apron on to do these. This is my apron for parts washing, modified by Jim. Put a velcro around it instead of messing about with the string. I also need a pair of glasses. This is imperative because the little things get everywhere. So what we're going to do is just take our time and use your eyes and observe where the hole is. I like to do it from this side, from the back. And you can see in a few seconds there we've got that hole central, so now we just need to open it out to be round. Now the beauty about this as well, this is why it's got a shoulder on it. So when you put the bush through, even if you've made the hole just a little bit too big, you can still, when it comes through, you can eyeball the sides against those guides here because they're always the same. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Told you about them little blinky things. There you go. Perfect. So the bush is in. Now what we're going to do is check the distance from one side to the other. To me, that looks pretty much perfect. So the next thing is, we're going to get that hole saw cutter and we're going to trim off the edges to make sure that they are nice and round. I'll go and get the cutter and I'll explain. These hole cutters are absolutely useless. They're made of cheese, but it's pretty good for putting into here and finishing off the hole. It won't cut through, but it takes the burrs off. That's all it's good for, really. And that should fit that through. What's that? Oh, there we go. I made it a bit tighter. There we go, that's in. So the next thing we're going to do is weld that bush in. Now, in years previously, I used to weld it just on here. The reason why I weld it in, because sometimes you might make the hole a little bit too big and the bush can drop out. So we put a couple of welds on. But in years gone by, I used to weld them here. This time I'm just going to weld them on this edge here. The reason for that is sometimes these springs are not all equal. And when you put the spring clip on, like this, it can catch the weld and push this up a little bit. See? So I'm going to move them for this year's model. We're going to upgrade them a little bit. So I'm going to mark that. There and there. And take the bush out. And then again with the die grinder, I'm going to take some of that paint off because you can't weld on. Oh, here we go. Paint. Now, that's done. We can put our bush back in. There we go. And you can see now we've got a nice place to weld a couple of tack welds onto there. Now this is my little trick I've developed over the years. What I do is I put it in a vise because the bench is a big ground. And I just give it a little nip and I tap the bush down just to make sure it's pushed as far down as it can go, and also because the bench is ground I can now put a little tack weld on there and that'll be done. Let me get set up. You could braze these if you want or solder them in, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's good. There we go, tacked in. Now the next thing we're going to do, just to finish it off, we're going to flat off those welds here. I've got one of them little metal splinters in my fingers now, so maybe it's a good idea to wear some gloves. Now, where's my die grinder gone? So there you go, that's buffed off nice and flush there, so that when the spring's in, when you put it over the ball, it's not going to catch. So the next thing is to put a bush in. I have one or two here. That just drops straight in, and then we're going to pop rivet them in. Because I do big batches of these, about 20-25 at a time, I'm using steel pop rivets, not aluminium ones, so that means the shank is steel and the pop rivet steel. I used to supply the kits with a hammer rivet. I've done away with those now because these are easier, and I use an air pop riveter principally because when you're doing a lot of these and you're just using a regular pop rivet gun, it gets really hard. So I'm getting old. So we put that onto there, put the rivet through. Now put your glasses on for this, and there is a reason for that. because some of these guns don't have a little catch can at the end, and the tang from the previous time can fly up and catch you in your old blinky. So I'll line that up, job done. And there we are. There's the bushing, nice and solid, nice and central, nice and square, just ready to go. It's not too difficult. If you can weld a chassis on, you can weld one of these on. But they really make a big difference. I found a big difference in them, and they last forever. And these forks here, they're quite good where I get them from. The pins are crimped over nice and tight. And this year, like I say, not only do I supply a little metal keeper instead of that plastic keeper for the push rod, I also supply some lithium grease. So you're going to put some lithium grease on in here, on this ball here. This piece here, for some bizarre reason, this little piece where the push rod goes, never ever wears out. It's always this one, and it's always this one that's going to let you down. So lithium grease on these pivots, on the ball, in here, and also on the tube where your bearing goes, your thrust bearing. Well, I was looking all over, but this is like take two, because I was looking all over for my fork, this one here, as you can see. We caught it just in time, and I'd been using it as a prototype for my pins here. Again, don't over tighten these, just make them just that little bit loose. Don't tighten them up, otherwise they won't move that much. You know, they'll be alright because they've got a nylock at the back. But you can see here what the problem is with them. Now another thing is, whilst you're doing your clutch, is these aluminium bearing supports are absolutely hopeless on 300 TDIs. The reason is the aluminium here wears out. Well, it doesn't wear out, but it gets elongated because the length of the ball here, when you're forcing your clutch backwards and forwards, it tends to rock. Let's rock. And it wears out the aluminium. So one of the things we must do when we do our clutches is to check this. If in doubt, pay a little bit more and get the cast iron one. Well worth it. So what you want is some lithium grease on here, just a smidge. You don't have to cake it on. And lithium grease on here, and then a little bit of lithium grease on here. You don't need much, so you can put some lithium grease in here too. The tube I supply is just enough to do the job. If you want another one, I've got them in the shop, so you can buy an extra tube. They're not very expensive, but it's the right stuff. So I hope that helps, because I know sometimes when, you know, like doing these here, it does take a little bit of time. And also, me being in Canada, well, might as well be up bloody dark side of the moon. But I do sell quite a lot of these, and we haven't had one back yet, so that's pretty good, isn't it? Right, see you later.